Hello again, Mission Wilderness friends. I am back on the water. Saw another solo paddler, as a matter of fact. Another person taking advantage of the early season when there aren't very many people on the boundary waters. It is got on the water at about 8:50. It's now 8:59. I think I'll hit the portage by 9:15. Based upon yesterday's portaging, I figure it'll take me about 2 hours to do each of these 250 rod portages. So that means that I will probably be at Pine Creek at around, I'm guessing 1 o'clock-ish. And hopefully I'll be at Trout Lake by 3 o'clock at the latest. We'll see how that estimation goes. There's going to be a lot of work today, a lot of portaging, a lot of paddling. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting my body in motion. I also think that it's just going to be a beautiful trip. It's been a beautiful trip so far. There's no question that I'm likely to see some amazing things. But I'm just looking forward to getting in motion and getting to trout and then enjoying some camping this afternoon. If I can get there by 3 o'clock and if these clouds clear off, I may actually be able to swim, which would be great because this body has gotten a little bit grimy after a couple of days with hard work and no opportunity to go swimming. I could also stand to wash some clothes too. These clothes are starting to get a little grimy. They deserve to be washed as well. But right now I'm gonna hit it, and for the rest of the day you can expect that I'll just be checking in and letting you know how I'm doing and where I'm going. I'm on Chad Lake. I completed that 250 rod portage in a lot faster time than I had originally expected. I thought it would take 2 hours. It only took a little over an hour. I started it at about 9:15, got done at about 10:15, and then I just paddled across Chad Lake. The paddle across Chad Lake, it's a nice lake. It's a really beautiful lake. It's got a lot of old, I wouldn't call them old growth trees, but it's got a lot of very mature trees on the shores. Good mixed forest, just a lot of different stuff. Really nice lake. A little bit breezy coming across, and I had to get on my knees and paddle so that I could move the weight to the front of my boat. You know, that way it was easier to steer into the wind. And then what happens is it creates a kind of fulcrum at the front, kind of like a weather vane, and then it would allow me to just track in a straight line. Whereas if I sat on my seat, I'm sort of back weighted, and when I'm back weighted and I'm into a headwind, it always wants to spin me around, so I have to spend a lot of time and action with my paddle, you know, steering the boat rather than just pushing the boat forward or pulling the boat forward, which is what I want to be doing. Well, that 250 rod portage though, that's not a bad portage. It's got a couple, it's interesting because it starts off with a stream. So the landing is at a stream, which makes it a really nice and easy landing because there's lots of gravel there. The boat just slides right up onto the shore. That's a really wonderful part of it. And then, you know, it's interesting because what it does is it goes over a slight height of land. And then what happens is that there's a stream that pours out the other side too. And that's, a lot of that water is maintained on the top by some beaver dams and such. But for the most part, the trail is, it's very boulevard-like. It's very wide open. There's no major obstructions anywhere. There's a little bit of mud. A little bit of intense elevation gain rather than gradual elevation gain. There is some gradual, but then there's a couple of spots where you're just immediately kind of go up a really sharp rise. and so you kind of have to have a burst of strength to get over that. There's a couple of parts where you go through a very mature red pine forest. It's got a nice canopy, and then it sort of clears out the undergrowth and allows you to see some distance into the forest, which is nice. That doesn't always happen. You don't always get to see that, but it is nice when you do. Really nice. There are 2 substantial beaver ponds, and I saw 3 beaver dams. The first beaver pond / maze of beaver channels, of braided beaver channels, is almost completely covered over by the land now, but it's got a great view. You can go onto a lookout and you can look down and you can see the whole thing. It's really kind of amazing. I wouldn't call it breathtaking, but it's impressive what those beavers can accomplish. And then, as you progress along the trail, you go to the top of that kind of maze of beaver channels, and you can see where the original dam was. And now the original dam has almost completely grown over, and it just looks like a land bridge, which is sort of impressive. It sort of shows you the late stages of what a beaver dam looks like in the late stages. And another tick, of course. And then the second beaver dam, or the second and third beaver dams that I saw, they produce a beaver pond that you run right into on the trail. So you're coming along the trail and then you run into this beaver pond right there. And it's like, oh no, I thought for sure I was gonna have to get out and I was gonna have to stop and paddle my boat across it, or maybe wade, which I certainly wasn't gonna do, but it looked like a major obstruction. So I looked left, and then I looked right, and I saw that what had happened is that over time people have just routed the portage trail around it, but it doesn't seem like a supernatural route. There's a really, really rapid rise as you come around the beaver pond, but then when you get to the other side, you can see the beaver dam that's holding it back. And again, it's another gigantic beaver dam. This is the land of the beavers. I've never been into a part of the Boundary Waters that was more dominated by the beaver. It is amazing. That's not as big as the beaver dam that I saw in the Little Indian Sioux, but it's a big beaver dam. And then there's another one right next to it that looks a little bit older, as evidenced by the fact that it's kind of overgrown. And that's kind of the last thing you see before you head into Chad Lake, or before the portage ends and you get to Chad Lake. And at that point, it's not a bad paddle across Chad, but Chad's a little more complex than some of the other lakes. There are some islands you have to be concerned about, and the shoreline is really there's a lot of features on the shoreline, a lot of little bays and inlets and what have yous that would be a lot of fun. If you were to camp here, you could paddle around here for a day or for an evening, and you could look at a lot of neat little inlets and a lot of little features. You could cruise around these islands. But yeah, it's a nice lake. I can definitely see taking this trip like in the fall. Once the bugs are down, the ticks especially, the ticks are just horrendous, and the mosquitoes are present. I've only had a couple of situations where I've had to wear the net, but this is the first time I've brought my net out in years. Look, there's another one. Look at this. And these are the deer ticks. These are the kind I have to be worried about for Lyme disease. These are not the typical dog ticks. Another one. My goodness, there's just so many. I mean, I'm doing everything I can. I got everything buttoned up here. I got DEET on to try to prevent them. But they're just everywhere. They're on me all the time. But yeah, it's just, I've been putting my head net in my outfit for a year. I've always put it in there. It's just a standard item. But I haven't used the head net in several years, I don't think. Not really had to use it until now, until this trip. And I find myself using it a lot. And I almost didn't bring it. I was thinking, oh, it's an early May trip. It's going to be cold. I probably don't have to worry about any bugs. But boy, I'm glad I brought it this time. It's some things you reflexively bring, because something like a head net is so light and takes up such little space. It is better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. To need it and not have it, I can't even imagine how one would get by. I mean, because DEET won't save you against swarms. It won't save you, because those mosquitoes will come at every spot. When they reach a certain critical mass, they will find the one spot on your body that does not have DEET, and then they will go to that spot. And that tends to be around your eyeballs, and that tends to be in your nostrils and in your mouth. They'll come right at it, man. I'm not kidding around. If you come up to the Boundary Waters and you're not carrying a head net with you, and you're here in June, or late May now, and certainly June, and probably throughout the rest of the summer, but less so in July and August and the rest of the season, boy, you are asking for trouble. You could find yourself in a real world of hurt. Anyway, I'm on Chad Lake now. I'm a little ahead of schedule. It's 10:43. Hopefully this next portage will take about an hour also, and then that'll put me at about noon. And then hopefully I'll be able to get into Trout in maybe another hour, hour and a half after that, and be there way ahead of schedule. I'll be there by 1:30. The clouds are lifting. The sun is coming out. I think I'm gonna have a pretty good shot at, maybe taking a bath, maybe doing some swimming and cleaning up, washing some clothes, letting them dry out. They're so drenched with sweat. My goodness. It's a great trip though. You know, it's hard, but it's a great trip. I'm just loving this trip. I'm so glad that you're with me. All right, I'm gonna have to get back to work now. Break over. Well, this is an interesting situation. The portage from Chad to Pine Creek is actually 2 portages as a consequence of some rather ambitious dam construction by the beavers. I am now on the Trout Lakes. I'm in the channel between Big Trout Lake and Little Trout Lake. So I'm right there in the channel. I just found myself a nice shady spot to take a break because I mean Pine Creek is nice, but it's totally exposed to the sun, and it's a little bit hot. So it feels very nice to be sitting over here in the breeze, sitting here in the shade. So I'm sitting in the shade. I'm probably going to put some more sunscreen on because I've sweat some of it off from what I put on Pine Creek, and I need to find a campsite. I'm looking at Kramer Island. It looks like it. I don't know. I can't really tell from. I could see it from the beach, but I couldn't really tell if somebody had been camping on it. The campsite here in the channel, at least the first campsite, is occupied. So I don't know why that's occupied. I don't know what's advantageous about that campsite, but that one on Kramer Island looks really good because it's got a great exposure to the west and to the southwest. I'm sure that pretty much anywhere that there's breeze if there's breeze coming from any direction, it looks as though you'd probably catch it on that site, which means that there's likely a place where you can sit in a chair and relax and maybe read or eat a meal or have a cup of coffee without having to be bothered by the bugs. And it also looks relatively well forested, so there's probably some shade back there too. So I'm going to go check that out. I'm going to see if it's available. If it's not available, I don't know what I'll do. I'll look at the map a little bit, see if there's anything else that's close by. Otherwise, I'll probably just head up to Little Trout and get as close to the portage for tomorrow morning as I can. I really don't want to risk not being able to get to the portage, although I could. I've got plenty of food. I could make it here for another night if I had to. I've got biscuits and I've got pancakes, which are sort of intended to be, you know, afternoon snacks, just kind of rewards for when I have a lot of time in the afternoon to just camp. Kind of like today. I'm way ahead of schedule. It's 2:02. I'm super impressed. I did really well. I didn't think that I was going to get here until maybe 3 o'clock. So I got here about an hour sooner. Had I not been held up by those 2 portage trails going from Chad to Pine Creek, I could have gotten here a lot sooner. Maybe 1:30, maybe 1:15. I'm feeling really good to be on this lake. I'm looking forward to taking a swim. It's perfect weather for it, and the water temperature is great. But looks like I'm gonna just randomly, looks like I'm kind of sort of drifting back into the sunlight now. I definitely want a campsite with some shade. All right, well that's it for me right now. I'll catch up with you later, probably when I get to the campsite. Well, sadly, the island site, the site on the tip of Kramer Island is taken. So I'm back headed north. I'm now in a channel between Kramer Island and another island, and it looks as though there is another campsite that is kind of still on the way to Little Trout Lake, and therefore still on the way to my portage tomorrow morning back in the Little Indian Sioux. And there are other sites, obviously. Trout is a big lake, there's a lot of sites, but I don't want to get too far away from where I need to be in the morning to get into Little Indian Sioux. I already have kind of a long day with the 300 rod portage, and Lord knows how many miles I'll do on the Little Indian Sioux before I get back to the car. But I do know my experience is that that's some tough paddling, and so I think just prudence dictates that I continue to look for a campsite that's close to the portage trail rather than going out into the big lake. I can make anything work. It'll be fine. You know, I mean, these are campsites in the Boundary Waters. These are all nice campsites. I can make them work. It would be nice to have something that's exposed to the breeze. I can feel already back here in these channels. There's not much breeze kicking back in these channels. These seem like they're going to be very protected campsites. So I'll take a look at what this is, see if it's getting any breeze, see if it's available first, and then see if it's getting any breeze, and then consider whether or not I should take it or continue on to Little Trout. See if there's something there that's available. There are 3 campsites on Little Trout. I have to believe that at least one will be available, especially if this one is open too. Then I can be reasonably certain that the campsites on Little Trout will be available. All right, I'll let you know. I'll keep you updated as to where I'm at and what's going on. That campsite in the channel is taken also. So I don't know what it is about that channel back there that people want to camp there. But I'm looking across big trout. I can see a campsite that looks like it's probably open. At least from here, I don't see anything obvious that would suggest that it's taken. And the fact that this campsite in the channel here is taken another one, that concerns me that maybe the campsites up in Little Trout are also taken. Maybe it's the fishing is really good back there or something, and that's the reason why people have those campsites. So I'm just gonna have to take a chance and go out onto Big Trout and take a campsite there if I can find one that's open. Hopefully it is, and it'll be better too because I'll probably have more exposure to the breeze out here, which could also be a problem if it kicks up tomorrow morning. It could keep me from getting back, but like I say, I could stay. I got a Kindle, I got stuff I could read, I got enough food to last another day, and I got no reason to be back tomorrow. I like to build in most of the time an extra day just in case something happens that keeps me held up here. That way I don't feel a lot of pressure to take risks that I don't want to have to take. But it's hardly a punishment to be out here in the wilderness for another day, that's for sure. Especially on this lake. This is a really nice lake. It's very clean, it's very big, and it looks as though it's going to offer some good opportunities for swimming and just some nice camping here. If I can get something with a western horizon, a view of the west, I should get a spectacular sunset. And even if my campsite doesn't have a good view of the west, as long as the lake is calm, I'll probably go out and just find a spot where I can, it seems to be lots of little points and rocks that come out where one could just go and picnic for the day. I mean, on a site like, or on a lake like this, you don't really need to have like the most premium campsite because you can paddle just about anywhere and find a good picnic spot to just hang out in all day. Even if your campsite is awful, you could probably find a spot to hang out. You just can leave your campsite, you know, bring your food with you, cook your meal somewhere else, whatever you have to do. You know, just find a nice comfortable place. As long as the weather is fair, you don't need to be close to your tarp or your tent, whatever. All right, folks, that's it for now. I'll give you another update when I find a campsite or just when I go look for one and there isn't one available. I'll just keep you updated as to what's going on until we get to our ultimate campsite. Right, so every campsite that I've looked at so far is occupied, and I can see one that is on the other side. It's on the western side of Big Trout Lake, but it's still relatively close to the channel, which I would use to paddle into Little Trout Lake. So it's not a terrible campsite. It's still reasonably close. Looks like it probably has good wind exposure or good access to wind exposure, and it appears to be open. Looking across the lake from here, it looks like it's open. I'm probably about maybe a quarter mile away. I'm not seeing any obvious signs of habitation. There are some things I'm looking at over there that I could interpret as maybe people, but then they haven't moved at all. So it's probably not people. And I don't see any tarps, I don't see any canoes, I don't see any tents, I don't see any lines, I don't see anything. So if that campsite is open, bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, man. I could head up to Little Trout and I could get skunked. If all three of those campsites are taken, I don't know what I'll do. Be in a bad way is what I'll be. I'll have to come all the way back down here and then just keep looking for a campsite. So my experience is, especially these front country lakes like this, if there's a campsite open, take it. I think that's where I'm at now. Take this campsite. So I'm gonna go over there. I might come right back on you and say, well, that campsite was taken, in which case I'll have to then decide what to do. But I don't know what that version of me will do yet. I don't know what decision that version of me will make. That version of me will have new information, because you know, I'll probably be on the other side of the lake. I'll probably be able to see other campsites and see whether or not they're taken, or maybe they're not. I don't know. All right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna hit it. See how it goes. All right. Well, it's a campsite. It's available, so I'm taking it. It's pretty good. It's got some wind exposure, at least for right now there's wind exposure. If not, there may be places that I can go to get some wind exposure. Coming across that channel, I got to admit, that was pretty tough. Coming across the lake was tough. Not super tough, not like impossible tough, but there were some good sized waves. If there was more wind than this, it might be impossible. I could very easily get pinned at this campsite. But for right now, it's a campsite. It's a campsite in a place where there aren't a lot of campsites. It clearly has not been used very much. There are some tent sites that are right close to the fire pit that look really nice. The fire pit looks fine. I'm not going to use the fire pit right now. I'm just going to cook on my stove. But it's got good wind protection for a nice place to cook, which I will appreciate. And I'm really happy with this. This is good. There's great swimming is available. There's a nice flat rock that goes out into the lake that's very clean. No mud, no grass, nothing like that. Just very nice and very clean. So I'm gonna have everything I need. I'm gonna bathe. I'm going to, I don't know, make a good supper, maybe pancakes. I might have pancakes today. It's great. I'm happy. I got a campsite. It's been a really great day of camping. I got to this campsite well before 3 o'clock this afternoon. It's 6:19 now, and I have had the opportunity to really enjoy myself here. This is great. It's been a nice sunny day. There's been a cool breeze that has been hitting this campsite the whole time. I've been in the shade, and so I've had what I call wilderness air conditioning, where I've got a breeze coming in and I've got shade above, and so it's always cool. At the same time, there have been nice little pockets of sunshine, so anytime I wanted to step out into the sunshine, I could, but I never really needed to because the ambient temperature has always been warm enough. It really truly does not feel like May, whatever it is now, I'm not even sure, but it does not feel like mid to late May at all. This feels full-on summer. This is full-on summer. And I am so blessed to have this campsite on this particular day with these wind conditions. It's a perfect campsite. I really love it. Even as the wind has died down, there aren't very many bugs here. And I think that's because generally if you look around, the trouts, and particularly this part of Big Trout, the ground is pretty high. There's not a lot of standing water, unlike when I was over by the Little Indian Sioux and over by Cummings. There's a lot of standing water in the ground, lots of fertile ground for mosquitoes to hatch, for black flies. And then of course there's a lot of moving water too, and black flies, they like moving water. And with all the moving water, with all the standing water, you get a lot of black flies, you get a lot of mosquitoes. And that just isn't happening here. It's really great. But yeah, I mean, I've gotten a lot done today. I washed, and since then I've just been doing camp stuff. I'm learning how to do time lapses, which is fun. You're probably gonna see a bunch of time lapses if you haven't already. Because I'm just having a good time with that. I cooked my supper. It's cooling now. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I'm looking forward to a nice supper. It was quite a day. It was a lot of work today. I was sweating pretty hard. But thankful I had a good time. Saw a grouse on one of the portage trails. I don't think I've mentioned that, but I saw a grouse. That was really nice. It is so rugged and so remote back there in the Little Indian Sioux. Speaking of which, we're going back there tomorrow. So I'm going to go ahead and eat my supper now, and I'll check in with you after supper. That was a great supper. Oh my goodness. It's so nice to have some time to be able to do some camping, to be able to just recreate a little bit. This has been all trip. We're at the other side of the lake now, and I am staring directly into the sunset. Oh, here the sun is going to go behind the horizon. It's just about ready to go. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can capture this for you. Here we go. Alright, the sun is going to go behind the horizon right now. And just as the sun goes behind the horizon on this day, it's been a really nice day. It is also setting on this trip. This is the last night, most likely the last night that I'll be here in the Little Indian Sioux Unit, at least for a time, for this trip, for this mission wilderness. But, you know, it's not like I'm just gonna take a leisurely stroll to the car tomorrow. It'll be a long, hard slog. I expect it'll take quite a long time to get there, too. I think we're gonna get some purple in the sky tonight. Well, I think that's it for this day. I'm just going to paddle across the lake here, kind of go slow so I can continue to look at the sunset and bliss out on all those colors and all those rays of light coming up over the horizon and that silhouette. It is awesome. But alas, I need to go to bed. It's 8:34. If I'm going to get up super early and make it on the water early, I'm going to have to go to bed earlier. So, alright, this is Mission Wilderness for the last night. Good night, and I will talk to you tomorrow morning.